22 degrees Celsius in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maofe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, welcome to the show. October 26th it is. I'm Ayo Makine. Today is Monday, just to remind you. And it's 26 degrees here in Lagos. How come we're so far apart today, Maofe?
Ayo, did you say it was 26?
I said
last
6.
I checked, it was the 6.
6, yes, 6. Thank you very much. 26 degrees in Lagos and October 6.
Okay, well. So, Ayo, today was celebrating teachers. It's World Teachers Day today, but yesterday the National Union of Pensioners took the center stage as they called attention to their own issues. We do know that the economy, if there's anything that everyone has suffered equally, maybe it hasn't hit everybody with the same strength, but if there's anything that we have all experienced in, in terms of the percentage increase, it has been inflation. And if there's any group of people who have felt it the most, they have been those who are earning minimum wage and pensioners. Pensioners, we know, rarely get an increase in their pensions to reflect the situation of inflation. And the National Union of Pensioners think that this ought not to be. And so they're calling on the president to do something about their situation. Ayo.
Well, it's a really concerning issue. There is no doubt about it. And let's just hope that one way or the other we'll be able to deal with that issue. It's definitely something we're going to be talking about in a bit, Maope. But there is no doubt that the concerns are very, very real this morning. There is no doubt that the concerns are very, very real. So we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll get into the issues.
Welcome back. Well, just before we went on that break, we were talking to you about the Nigerian Union of Pensioners, who are asking that the minimum wage or the minimum payment, the minimum pension being paid to a pensioner should be increased from about 32,000 naira, where it currently is, to about 60,000 naira. As we all know, the economy has experienced wild inflation as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy and an increase in fuel costs, which has affected every other area of the economy. And the hardest hit in this group of people who receive, salaries or remuneration, they're no longer receiving salaries. They're receiving some money, at least from the federal government, have been pensioners whose incomes are usually quite fixed and perhaps are now past their age of, working as they could and now rely on a pension that the projections for which or on which it was made will no longer be feasible. Well, this is what they had to say in Abuja.
Pensioners from different parastatals and ministries converged to mark their annual Pensioners' Day celebration. The plight of pensioners and demands for increase in pension funds has been on the front burner. This year's celebration is no different.
Especially appreciate
while they applaud President Tinubu for releasing funds for payment of outstanding pensions and gratuities, they appeal for an approval of a new national minimum pension.
I humbly make passionate appeal to our amiable and indefatigable President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to consider his gracious approval for a new national minimum pension of 60,000 naira instead of 32,000 naira for Nigerian pensioners, in appreciation of their long, active and selfless services to their fatherland.
They further make other demands that affect members of the union.
The release of balance of 37 billion out of the 58 billion approved for the implementation and payment of the arrears of the 32,000 naira pension increase. 2. Urgent inclusion of pensioners from the 7 defunct parastatals who were advertently excluded from benefiting the 32,000 pension increase.
The day rounds up with a reminder to state governors and local government chairmen for immediate implementation of series of pension increase approved by the federal government over the years. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
Well, the meeting of the pensioners was not the only thing that transpired in Abuja over the weekend. Last week, the third session of the Independent Judicial Accountability Panel, also known as IJAP, held from late last week to the 3rd of October at the Lake Greenfield Hotel here in Abuja. And at the end of that particular meeting, they came to a number of resolutions. They took a look at some of the cases that had been in court for a while, some of which the lordships, some of them have gotten to as high as the Supreme Court, and decisions have been reached on them. So they reviewed the proceedings or the judgments emanating from those courts, and they came to certain conclusions and made certain recommendations. Some of the cases which they reviewed include the APC versus Bashir Sharif, Ahmed Lawan, and INEC. Remember that very controversial case which involved the substitution of the Senate President, then Senate President Ahmed Lawan, with a certain Manchina, where they said there could be no placeholder, or laws did not know any, were not used to anything called a placeholder. That particular case came under review. So also did Oyetola and Anor versus INEC, which also came under review. They also took a look at the emergency rule in Rivers State and made certain recommendations there as well. This morning, we are joined by the chairman of the Independent Judicial Accountability Panel, His Lordship, Honorable Justice Mojeed Owuade, who is a retired justice of the Court of Appeal. He joins us virtually from Ibadan. Good morning, Your Lordship. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Very important work that your panel has undertaken in this regard. May I ask you, how did the cases which you set up for review come to be the ones that you reviewed in the first instance?
Thank you very much. We try to examine cases that are of public interest. You recall that IJAP arose from Cliff Justice Program of Action Aid. And Action Aid is a poor non-governmental organization. And therefore, those things that would interest the general public, especially the masses, we tend to examine, study them, and make appropriate recommendations or suggestions, as the case may be. This is the position of things.
Okay, very interesting cases that you have decided to take on and look at. Some of them were a bit controversial in their time. Take, for instance, this issue of the placeholder matter. I mean, that's how the public will remember this particular case, which eventually went to court. Case. Yes, which eventually went up to the Supreme Court. Today, Senator Ahmed Lawan is sitting in the Senate, and Manchina is nowhere to be found, even though, well, he pursued his matter. From what I can see here, you do not seem to, I wouldn't say you don't agree with the Supreme Court, but you recommend that the Supreme Court ought to have taken a look at the substantive matter rather than rest on technicalities. Is that correct?
Well, we believe that the matter that came before the Supreme Court itself was decided on technicalities rather than substantial justice, as they used to do. Supreme Court itself has laid it down that cases must follow substantial justice. But in the Lawan or the Machina case, as people tend to call it, the Supreme Court unfortunately espoused technical justice rather than substantial justice. And that was, so we now reminded the Supreme Court that in future, please try and stay with your recommendation, suggestion that we should try and do substantial cases as substantial justice as much as possible. That is the difference. But you may not have enough time for us to go into the details, because they were talking about that the case should have been instituted by way of writ of summons rather than originating summons. But there was nothing that would have stopped Machina from actually instituting the case by way of originating summons as he did. And recall that in the particular case, the Supreme Court itself was 3-2. So 2 of the justices felt no. The case was properly instituted and it will have been taken on its merits, which was not so by virtue of the ruling of the majority. So that was why we now said no. In future, stick to your admonition on substantial justice rather than technical justice. Thank you.
I'm taking a look at this second matter, which you also highlighted, well, which is in the matter Oyetola versus INEC. What exactly was this case about? You say this, I mean, part of what you said was that you pick your cases based on public interest. Was this also controversial at the time?
No. What happened in the Oyetola case, that was the Osun governorship case. INEC declared Adeleke as winner, and he now went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court did the proper things, but gave us proper education as to what exactly a petitioner must prove to be successful in election matters. So this was pressing, as it were, pressing the Supreme Court on what they did in the Oyetola and the Rose Bible cases. We are saying that this was a good path, which should also be followed in the future. We did not say the Supreme Court was wrong. If anybody was wrong in the Oyetola case, it was the tribunal that did not get the principles of law right. But the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court corrected that situation and showed us the importance of beavers improving election petitions or election matters. In other words, you cannot say that a person who did not tender beavers, for example, who did not tender register of voters, is the person who won an election, as was done by the tribunal in the Oyetola case. This was corrected by the Court of Appeal and upheld by the Supreme Court. So we don't want to always criticize the Supreme Court. We feel that when they have done very well, we should also be able to announce that, as it were, to the public.
So on this particular matter, you found that they did well?
Yes, thank you very much. That's the way to put it. They did well. They did well in the Oyetola case. They did very well in the Rose Bible case. Okay. That's exactly what.
Part of what I also notice here is that you talk about constitutional bills and the electoral bill, which I'll come to shortly. But I want to take you up on the issue of the emergency declaration in Rivers, which was before a court. From what we understand, that matter has now been thrown out by court. I think it was on Friday that news came through, that the matter has now been thrown out by the court. Do you have that news?
I had the news. We had the news. That was one high court, but the matter is still pending before the Supreme Court. Our comment on that is that in such important constitutional matters, the Supreme Court should not delay the cause of public interest. That the Supreme Court should have had this case a long time ago. So we are talking about the matter before the Supreme Court, not the one that was thrown out before the High Court, before one of the High Courts, perhaps the Federal High Court. So it's the Supreme Court. We commented that the Supreme Court should not delay in hearing important constitutional matters, such as the one before it on the Rivers matter. Thank you. Not the one that was thrown out.
Will it still, because now the emergency rule is over, from what we know, the governor is back in office. If the Supreme Court were to sit on this matter, would it still have any relevance or any bearing?
It will. It will have bearing. It will have bearing because it will still create precedence on the interpretation of the emergency powers of presidents under Section 305 of the Constitution. So it will definitely have bearing. So they can still decide it. Nothing stops them.
All right.
Yes.
You are a retired Justice of the Court of Appeal. Are you aware of anything that could be, could have caused an impediment as to why the Supreme Court might not have heard this matter up till now?
Well, there could be impediments in terms of the workload of cases of the dockets. You see, but exactly that's why we came in. Whatever the dockets, when there are important constitutional matters of national importance, they should be given preference so that people will be guided. That is what we are saying. That is what we are doing. Yes, there could be impediments, no doubt, but we are saying that in future, such impediments should give way for the importance of such cases, because the members of the public were actually waiting to hear from the Supreme Court. People could not comment on the case because it was before the Supreme Court. The question is, the Supreme Court should now tell us what is the position of things when it comes that way. Can the president, for example, do this and do that under Section 305? So it is still relevant in terms of precedence. That is our contribution.
One of the things I noted here about the emergency rule in Rivers State is that you say the National Assembly adopted a voice vote as against a roll call vote to establish the two-thirds majority of its members required by Section 305 of the Constitution on such an important issue. You go on to recommend that on important constitutional cases or issues, the National Assembly should use a roll call vote to establish the required majority instead of a voice vote. Is this a matter that can be challenged in court?
Well, it can be challenged. No, there's no doubt about that. It can be challenged because it was a constitutional stipulation. When there is a constitutional stipulation, you cannot adopt a voice vote. Because people should be able to know how did you get to 2/3 in terms of Section 305, or in some cases, maybe 4/5, when there's amendment to the Constitution. I think they should, in all cases, have a roll call vote and not a voice vote. Thank you.
All right. A number of other issues, but I'm sure that my colleague Ayo would like to take you up on them. Ayo, over to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that's bothered my mind about this particular issue that we've been talking about is the place of not just the judges now, but the lawyers that come before the judges. From your experience as an experienced jurist and the things that you have had to encounter from legal practitioners as well, what is your reading of how some of those cases are brought and argued that could have brought the judiciary to the state where it is today?
I hope I understood.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. You mean the attitude of lawyers?
Yes, that could have degraded the situation to where you and your team have to be intervening the way you are right now.
Yes. Unfortunately, it is not in all cases that lawyers think of public interest. The average lawyer thinks of winning his case or her case, as the case may be. And of course, that's problematic. Lawyers should help the courts. They are not always helping the courts. I think it's safer to put it that way. The role of a lawyer is to help the courts, but almost invariably, they are not always playing that role properly. I think that is because it is not the case. In many cases, the opposing lawyer knows what is right. The defending lawyer may know what is right, but they will present that which will favor the points or the case that they are pursuing, so to say. I hope I do get your point here.
Actually, you do, but you know, still speaking in the same light, it means then, from what you're saying, that if the lawyers are not helping the court, they want to win a case so that at least that kind of increases their marketability, if I can put it that way, and all of that. So if the lawyers are not thinking of overriding public interest in winning cases, in arguing before the courts, then I don't know.
Even
it would
in
seem like
the cases.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I say even in bringing the cases, some of the cases probably will not have been brought to court. Some of the cases that the lawyer will have considered one way or the other, but they hardly get to do that. So that's repeating what I've said. Yes. But you are going to say something.
Yes, perhaps that also raises the issue of whether there is a role for the NBA or for the National Judicial Council on that to ensure that there is focus on what the nation needs and not just what one or two interests need in any case.
Well, let's put it this way. The business of lawyering is different from the business of adjudication, even though they cross the line or they arose from the same source, so to say. I mean, the lawyer will be a lawyer, the judge will be the judge. And that's why we have them in different capacities. See, we cannot put it too much on them, that they have to argue at all times in terms of public interest. No. In fact, public interest itself requires definitions. So let us just put it that, well, when there is the business of lawyering, there is the business of adjudication, where the business of adjudication becomes more important because the consequences affect public interest. That is the way to put it.
Okay.
Exactly.
But now, speaking in that same light, there is a pile of cases that dates back many decades, many years.
No doubt.
Some of those people who brought those cases to courts have died. Some situations have overridden some of the reasons for which those cases were brought to court. Are the issues you have raised this morning, how do they come in that kind of light? Because if there is a focus for what the purpose of lawyering and adjudicating thing should be, will we have so many cases, or are there some other issues that occasion that we are not aware of?
Definitely, if that purpose is fulfilled, we will not have as many cases as we are having. Definitely, because there are many cases that wouldn't have been in the courts in the first instance. There's no doubt about that. But when they are now in the courts, it becomes the business of the adjudicator to clear the cases. The courts are constantly battling with the problems of delay in handling cases. And I know I can speak, for example, for the Court of Appeal and indeed the Supreme Court. They are trying all possible ways to clear those cases because there are rather too many. As far in between the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, some of the things to do, or even the High Court, is to reduce the types of cases that will go to particular courts or that will go on appeal to particular courts. I hope you understand what I'm saying. In other words, we can say at the High Court level, these cases should stop at Magistrate Court. These cases should stop at High Court. These cases should stop at Court of Appeal. Some of these cases should never get to the Supreme Court. In that way, therefore, there will be, for example, you recall, one of the justices of the Supreme Court, when she retired, Justice Amina Agi, she said, unfortunately, the Supreme Court still battles with even cases of people that steal goods, quote and unquote. In other words, trivial matters should not get up to that stage. Some should not even get to the Court of Appeal. That would be one of the best ways of reducing congestion in the courts. Thank you. Okay.
I think a question now for me is now, where exactly would these recommendations be used? I mean, how do you intend to push these recommendations forward?
Well, Malpe, some of our previous recommendations have been adopted by coincidence because some others could have pressurized the National Assembly in this direction also. But if you look, what you are going to say, constitutional bills, we have a list of suggestions, recommendations that we made that have now been adopted by the Constitutional Review Committee on constitutional bills. One of them is about pre-election, appointment of INEC chairman, and so on and so forth. So we go to visit the National Assembly, give them our papers, so that, because the legislature actually is the best point for law reform. So if you look at that paper, you find out that some of our recommendations have now been included in the pending attempts to review the Constitution, to review the Electoral Act, and so on, and we have been able to identify them.
How very upbeat are you that this constitutional amendment process is going to yield the, will I say, the changes that Nigeria desire to see, not just in the judicial system, but also in the executive and legislative arm of governments? Because there are those who have lost faith in this constitutional amendment process and who are asking for a new constitution altogether.
Well, the starting point is the constitutional provisions will not solve all problems in society. A new constitution, yes, those are people that are concerned with the fundamentals, the way that the constitution is brought about to be. So you cannot blame them for looking for an entirely new constitution. But in terms of assessing executive behavior, judicial behavior, legislative behavior, the amendments will still go a long way to solve our problems, if I can put it that way. Yes. There are two different things. Amendments take one portion, which will still regulate behavior, but those that are concerned with another constitution, they are talking about the fundamentals, the way the constitution is brought about, the constituents of the nation, of course, you know. So that either way, the amendments will go a long way, but perhaps having a new constitution will be a better representation of the problems of the diverse nations of Nigeria. I think I'll stop there. Diverse nations, exactly.
We have to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, Justice Owade. We have to wrap it up at this particular point. We sincerely hope that the changes which you have recommended eventually make their way into our constitutional review outcomes. We've been speaking with Honorable Justice Mojeed Owade, retired Justice of the Court of Appeal, who is the chairman of the Independent Judicial Accountability Panel. He joined us virtually from Ibadan. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, we take a break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about World Teachers' Day. We've spoken about the plight of pensioners, and one category of people who are now saying their reward should no longer be just in heaven. They want a bit of it on earth, are teachers. We'll be having that conversation when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
Thank you so much for staying with us. World Teachers' Day is held annually on October 5 to celebrate all teachers around the world. It commemorates the anniversary of the adoption of the 1966 ILO UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers, which sets benchmarks regarding the rights and responsibilities of teachers and standards for their initial preparation and further education, recruitment, employment, and teaching, as well as learning conditions. Well, this morning we have with us the state chairman of the Nigeria Union of Teachers in Lagos, Comrade Hassan Akintoye. He's right here with me in the studio. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning.
You've heard all kinds of things, and a good number of people wonder, when we are talking about teachers, first of all, let's talk about perception. From your experience, what is the perception out there about teachers?
I can't speak for people, but you said, based on my experience, and I think you have dug into the root of Teachers' Day, that it was established or set aside this 5th of October, right back 1966, through ILO convention. And if you go by that figure, that is almost 60 years now, by 1966. So I wouldn't want to arrive at the response based on immediate situation. It spanned through years, decades. And that is the relevance of this year theme, recasting teaching as a collaborative profession. When you say the word recast, by the time you put RE before any word, that means it's a form of repeat. It's something you have done before. So, coming to your question, through that theme, is that in those days, teaching profession used to be a collaborative effort, whereby teachers work with the parents, work with the government, especially the policy makers, with a view to nurture younger one for a better society. So if we are complaining today about myriads of problems facing our society, I just listened to you talking about judiciary. So with a lot of problems in terms of people assessing justice, not judgment. So that means we have serious problem. Well, and I can trace this to education,
well, comrade,
the perception of teachers.
My apologies. You know, one of the jobs of teachers is to set exams.
Yes.
Unfortunately, today you are the one that is answering the questions that you usually set. Now, the reason I asked that question is maybe we are having issues with some of these problems that you're going to talk about for teachers, because the perception is faulty.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking what your opinion is about the perception of teachers. Maybe if we have an understanding, a mutual understanding, okay, this is the perception of teachers out there by various people, then we can now know why the problems have persisted. So from your perspective as a teacher, and from the perspective of maybe your members as well, how do you think people perceive teachers out there?
Yeah. Generally speaking, I see people's perception about teachers as that kind of a situation where they believe they did not really matter in the society again. Because if that is not the case, then they will have paid more attention to the plight of teachers.
What do you think, now going back by the background you gave, what do you think is responsible for that perception of teachers not that teachers do not matter as they used to before? You just talked about recasting.
Yeah.
So it existed before. Yeah. They had a lot of respect. I grew up in an environment where we were told that just the mere sight of your teacher just the mere sight of your teacher is the beginning of wisdom. You recalibrate, immediately. But what do you think happened over time?
What actually happened over time, based on critical analysis of our situation, is that education has lost values. So, and those who are responsible for the delivery of that education, definitely they will lose their value.
When you say education lost value, what do you mean?
Take, for instance, there is ongoing, can I say a program, rather a show, Big Brother Niger. Someone has just won 50 million naira last night.
Million.
Is it 150?
150 million, yes, thank you.
How well have you rewarded the best WAEC student in the country? Just let us take that so that we can encourage others. We have a lot of our students who have come out with serious innovations that ought to be promoted and celebrated so that we can encourage others to come up with innovations. Nations thrive based on innovations. So once we cannot do that, Has education retained its values? In those days, we believed that with education, you have everything. But does that obtain again that you can only do well as long as you are educated? No. Students pass through all the hurdles of primary, secondary, up to tertiary education, comes out without employment. In those days, recruitment takes place right at the venue of graduation in our higher schools. So I listened to a pathetic story of a member just yesterday who spent all her life to train that child. The child graduated at 23. The boy is 43 now. The man is no longer a boy. He's 43 now, yet to be gainfully employed. Where is that value for education? In those days, when you come out of a teacher training school, you are placed directly into school. Across the Western region, even if you graduate at a Igbobo teacher training college in Lagos, if you choose to work in Kwara, you go there, placement. In those days, when parents put all they have together to train you, they know that they are out of the poverty circle. Are those values still retained?
Do you think these issues you have raised, because there's quite a number of them, do you think some of these issues that you have raised is a function of policy, or what exactly do you think could be the reason for all of this, back step, if I can put it that way?
It has to do with those that constitute the space of leadership in our nation. Take, for instance, in Finland, they put as much premium on teachers in those countries to the extent that you cannot even effect arrest of teachers without the president's consent. That's enough. We attract the best into that system to equip the younger generation. Do we have that in our country again? Here we find ourselves in a country whereby a teacher correcting a student on issue that will affect him or her, and the next day you have a parent in your school to scold or even organize outside to beat up such a teacher.
Do you think the teacher training system is as strong as it used to be?
Well, I wouldn't say yes or no. It may not as strong as it used to be. That does not mean that it is actually declining. It is the pace at which we ought to have moved that we are not really moving.
Could that be part of the reason for the degradation of the plight of teachers?
No, really. We still have best hands in our schools. Let me take my state, for instance. As at 2 days ago, Lagos State teacher became the best teachers in Africa, awarded in Addis Ababa. We had Teachers Day yesterday in Abuja. My state has also won, my teacher, the teacher of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has won the best school, the best administrator, school administrator. This does not happen by accidents. It happened because of consistent effort of teachers in Lagos State and the government making herself available to work with the leadership of teachers in ensuring that we have collaborative effort. And consistently we have been winning. That is to show that that value that I'm talking about, if all state of federation could do as much as that, not that we have got it there in Lagos, but I'm just using it as a scenario. We need to go back to the root where we will make teachers the bedrock of the foundation of developmental plan for a nation.
Well, there are many other issues to raise with you, particularly that issue of the theme of the year, recasting, the profession for collaborative whatever. Well, Markwe has a number of questions for you as well. Go ahead, Markwe.
I think first I'd like to congratulate all teachers today and congratulate our guests in the studio, Comrade Hassan Akintoye, on World Teachers Day, and to thank them for the work that they do. You know, it's a little heartbreaking sometimes that we see that a lot of people do not want to be teachers these days because there's no premium, there's no value being placed on the work that a lot of teachers are doing. And so we're saying that recruitment is suffering. People are going there as a last resort. You know, what else can I do? And they just say, oh, go and teach. Not because they have the passion, but because there is nothing else to do. So for those who are doing this passionately and are seeking the advancement of the profession, we have to thank them most sincerely. But let me quickly ask you, in this particular regard, because I did make reference to it when I was talking about the rewards of teachers, which they always say is in heaven. Some people say, oh, we should bring some of it to earth, you know, because we need to attract more quality people into the profession. After all, we're talking about the next generation here. And none of us will be in any position today or any, let's say, work of repute, if not for the work that our teachers did while we were growing up. So in that regard, would you say that not just state governments now, or would you say that there has been a concerted push towards remunerating teachers more properly?
Thank you very much. I thought you will start on the note of general assessment throughout the Federation, but now that you have restricted me to Lagos State, where I am leader of teachers, I can say that Lagos State government is doing its best. If we want to arrive at that affirmation, don't let us just say yes. Let's pick some parameters. You know, in most of the state of federation, we have a situation whereby primary school teachers are placed under a local government, while secondary school teachers are under state government. So they receive salary at different dates, and mostly not in favor of the primary school teachers. And you know, this is the foundation. So that is not happening in my state. We receive salary on the same day. We don't have backlog of promotion areas. We receive our leave allowance and enjoy the benefit of it. And training is ongoing. And as I'm talking to you right now, there is recruitment of teachers, both at secondary school level, TESCOM, and SUBEB, about to commence their own now. So if we use that parameters, we can say, well, they are doing fine. That does not mean that we are there yet. Especially, there is issue that there is ongoing discussion around it with the Lagos State government. That is the extension of retirement age of teacher from 60 to 65. If that has been done for university lecturers, if that has been done to the judges, to retain their best and the experience in such a way that they can mentor these younger ones that are coming in, that you have earlier described as people coming in without passion for the job, who has come to the job as a stepping stone, looking forward to better options. Unfortunately, they remain there with that alternative option, not in sight. But the fact is that when you retain them in a system where they are not really passionate about, there is less of commitment, then you might not necessarily get the best. But because of the collaborative effort between the leadership of the union and Lagos State government, maybe that is the reason why we are fairly better than most of these other states of the Federation.
So, well, you are now comparing, if to take a broader look, though, I mean, expand it beyond Lagos State, what are some of the other things that you would like to see for teachers as we, go towards the year 2030?
I can't get the question right. Can I get you right? If you can repeat the question, I wouldn't mind.
What I was asking you to expand beyond Lagos State. Yes, please. So I was asking that you expand beyond Lagos State and tell us some other things that you would like to see, not just for Lagos, but for other teachers across the different states of the Federation.
The first thing is that teachers should be treated equally. Whether you are a primary school teacher or you are a secondary school teacher, let them be treated equally. Let's migrate the funding of primary school sector from the local government to the state, so that fund meant for the payment of teacher salary, training, promotion, and some other things, let it be directly under the state, so that there can be this uniformity. So because the product of primary school, they are the raw materials for the secondary school. So if you don't now, as teachers don't have access to equal treatment, that might affect the productivity at the foundation level, which might affect the processing of the raw material at the secondary school level. So the basic thing is that fundamental defect in the management of the primary school education in Nigeria, whereby the constitution placed the funding of primary school under local government, not absolutely even under them. The constitution said they shall participate. Participating with who? The funding of education should be a concern to all of us. Let's pay it directly, place it directly under the state so that it can be better managed. And I think this is one of the main problems we are having across the Federation. But because in Lagos, we have decided to come together, whatever that is meant for the education sector, it is deducted from source and, disbursed, and things are working.
So the theme is recasting teaching as a collaborative profession. What are your expectations after this day?
Going by the theme, I was about to analyze it, that recast. That means what we are clamoring for is not new. And when you cast, it's like you are making a mark on a surface that will make it indelible over years. So in those days, teaching used to be a collaborative effort, where you stop as a teacher after the school hour, the parent compliments. How many parents ask their children after school, what have you learned? Check their notebook. If something meaningful was done on that particular day, then the government in those days, like you said, respect teachers so much. They were opinion leaders. Their opinion counts in the society. How much or how often do the policymaker sit with those who are right on the field to give them feedback in terms of direction, so that working policy can be effected at the level of government. So, and even the society at large, we must identify with teachers that those values that we have lost over the year, we bring them back. Let me give a specific example. When we talk about the society, in churches, in mosques, what has been the direction of our sermon? Who do we honor in our churches and in our mosques, in the society, so that we can begin to redirect our sense of value to bring that glory back.
Okay. So, but how about the teachers themselves? Because sometimes it's a function of positioning. Is there a way that your union, for instance, helps to redirect the minds of teachers about the profession? Because sometimes it can be quite intimidating. Everyone has what they're going through, and the parents have expectations of teachers. Teachers have expectations of parents. So at what point do you think that conversation needs to happen, and how? We have a forum whereby parent and to the school level. So the basic thing is that fundamental defect
in the management of the primary school education in Nigeria, whereby the constitution placed the funding of primary school under local government, not absolutely even under them. The constitution said they shall participate. Participating with who? The funding of education should be a concern to all of us. Let's pay it directly, place it directly under the state so that it can be better managed. And I think this is one of the main problems we are having across the federation. But because in Lagos, we have decided to come together, whatever that is meant for the education sector, it is deducted from source and, disbursed, and things are working.
So the theme is recasting teaching as a collaborative profession. What are your expectations after this day?
Going by the theme, I was about to analyze it, that recast. That means what we are clamoring for is not new. And when you cast, it's like you are making a mark on a surface that will make it indelible over years. So in those days, teaching used to be a collaborative effort. Where you stop as a teacher after the school hour, the parent compliments. How many parents ask their children after school, what have you learned? Check their notebook. If something meaningful was done on that particular day, then the government in those days, like you said, respect teachers so much. They were opinion leaders. Their opinion counts in the society. How much or how often do the policymaker sit with those who are right on the field to give them feedback in terms of direction so that working policy can be effected at the level of government. So, and even the society at large, we must identify with teachers that those values that we have lost over the year, we bring them back. Let me give a specific example. When we talk about the society, in churches, in mosques, what has been the direction of our sermon? Who do we honor in our churches and in our mosques, in the society, so that we can begin to redirect our sense of value to bring that glory back.
Okay. So, but how about the teachers themselves? Because sometimes it's a function of positioning. Is there a way that your union, for instance, helps to redirect the minds of teachers about the profession? Because sometimes it can be quite intimidating. Everyone has what they're going through, and the parents have expectations of teachers. Teachers have expectations of parents. So at what point do you think that conversation needs to happen, and how?
We have a forum whereby parent and teacher meet regularly. Even in my school, we had one about 3 days ago. And based on my position, and also as a teacher, I took my time to also address those parents, apart from the principal of the school. So there is need for us to come together and continue to work together. And let me also tell you, I cannot come here and say that teachers do not also have a part of this issue to be blamed.
Okay.
We are working on ourselves, identify our areas of shortcoming and work on it so that all of us can
everyone is definitely looking forward to that one. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Comrade Hassan Akintoye, State Chairman, NUT Lagos. By the way, congratulations to all teachers for the win of the largest gathering of teachers in Lagos.
Yes.
Appreciate your time here this morning. That's the show this morning. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to a new week.
Well, thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. On top of the hour is Business Morning. Please stay with us.